Thank you to Principal Conlon for hosting us here at Top of the World, and welcome. And he's also been gracious enough to let us have the next two copyrights here, since we're trying to find out what our next venue is going to be from our permanent location. So October and November will be here as well. And for those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm Cheryl Kohlberg, and I'm taking over for Cindy Newman-Jacobs, so big shoes to fill. She did a great job with Coffee Break. So, and I wanted to say thank you to Bread Artisan Bakery for the pastries. They're really yummy. If you haven't had one, take one on your way out, because I'm sure we'll have some left over. And I couldn't do this on my own, so I wanted to give a shout out to my committee, which is awesome. They've worked so hard to bring some good speakers to the school district this year. So if you could just stand up briefly while I mention your name. We have Lynn Beers and Lisa Ansel Black in the back doing the registration. Catherine Fran Richardson. Where's Catherine? She's going to be doing our video today, and she gets the flyers out to everyone and the banners. Pamela London Frank. Oh, there's Pamela. She helps with a whole bunch of different things. We have Suzette Cruz. Our speakers. Melissa Vermilia. There's Melissa helping out with our food. We have, let's see, Alice Nathanson is doing our press. Stacy Johnson. I don't know if Stacy's here today. Stacy's helping out with something. And then Carrie Reynolds, Jan Schreiber, Monique Montessari, and Ketta Brown, who couldn't be here today. So thank you to all of you so much. I appreciate it. I did want to mention that you should turn off your cell phones now if you haven't had a chance to do so, so that we don't have some interruptions during the speakers. And I want to say thank you for our school board members, Jan Vickers, Teresa O'Hare, and Betsy Jenkins for coming today. And I also wanted to say, if you're new to the district, is there any parents that are new this year to the district? Raise your hand. So I want to say welcome. Make sure you come up and introduce yourself afterwards. I'd love to meet you. And if anyone's sitting next to someone who's new, please introduce yourself to them as well, so we can welcome them here to Laguna. And I think that's about it. We are in for a good presentation today. We're going to hear from our leaders about the Common Core, the technology in the classroom, facilities updates, and new staff. So I'm going to turn it over to Shireen Smith, our superintendent, to do the introductions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I would like to thank Cheryl. She is a joy to work with. She's super organized, coordinated. It's been so simple for me just to work with her, and here we are this morning. I appreciate all of you being here. And a shout out to, as Cheryl said, our board members, Betsy Jenkins, Teresa O'Hare. We may have one or two show up a little bit later in the morning, but again, thank you. And I would like to introduce our administrative team, and I'll start to my right, the principal of El Moro Elementary School, Chris Debbie. We have Irene White, who is our Director of Special Education and Student Services. Mike Conlon, Principal, Top of the World, not only as Top of the World. Jamie Sahlberg, Principal, Thurston Middle School. Darlene Messinger, our Assistant Superintendent of Instructional Services. We have our fabulous Chief Technology Officer, Mike Morrison, or as I call him, M&M. And to my left, we have our Chief Business Official, our Assistant Superintendent of Business, Dean West. The Interim Principal of Laguna Beach High School, Carolyn Williams. Our Director of Human Resources and Public Communications, Lisa Winston. And we have our new Coordinator of Assessment, Amy Kernan, who's going to discuss this. Okay, I will begin with a little overview of the kinds of conditions that are facing our students as we move into the 21st century. What I have done is kind of encompasses all of the things that we hope to achieve for our students in our educational system. We want our students to leave Laguna Beach schools or graduate from Laguna Beach high school with the skills and background and experience they need to be successful in their life and careers in college and just to be a fulfilled human being. And so what I'm going to share with you is information from a renowned researcher and author. His name is Gary Marks. And he analyzes trends. Every few years he analyzes the trends and predicts how those trends will impact us. His most recent book from 2014 is called 21 Trends for the 21st Century, very catchy. But they're very compelling and they build on work that he has done in the past. And so I have entitled the presentation, Ready or Not, Learning for the 21st Century. The world is changing, as we know. It's changing very rapidly and it's changing in very profound ways that will impact us and our children for generations to come. Life is fast and complicated. It gets faster and it gets more complicated. I know when I was a child, we had lots of time just to go out and play unsupervised. And I grew up in a rural area, so we would go down to the creek, unsupervised, and we would go ride horses unsupervised, and we would go hike out in the mountains and build forts and everything unsupervised. And we didn't have soccer, and we didn't have our time scheduled, and our playtime wasn't a play date. Life is much more, I think, organized, scheduled, and intense for children. The expectations are so high and our hopes are so powerful that we don't want to miss anything to make sure our children get the very best. What does the future hold for us? The future keeps changing daily. We have predictions and then they play out or they don't play out, but the change seems to be accelerating and the future is unpredictable. And the imperative for us is preparing our students for the road ahead. And how do we do that? How do we prepare our students for the road ahead? And this book, as I mentioned, describes the 21 trends in the 21st century, and these are the trends that we want to prepare our students for. Again, so when they go out in life, they're ready and they're prepared. As I noted, it's written by author and futurist Gary Marks, and it describes the major trends that will affect our future. Starting with number 1, generations. Millennials will insist on solutions to accumulated problems and injustices that will profoundly impact leadership and lifestyles. And you can see some of that playing out now on the political stage and how the political parties are reacting, or the high, I guess, number of people who are starting to be unaffiliated with a political party. Diversity in a series of tipping points. Majorities will become minorities, creating ongoing challenges for social cohesion. And that has happened in California already. We are just over, Latino population is just over 50% in California. Worldwide, growing numbers of people and nations will discover that if we manage our diversity well, it will enrich us. If we don't manage our diversity well, it will divide us. And I think in California especially, we are very good at taking advantage of our diversity. It really is something powerful that makes us, it gives us advantages that other countries in the world don't have. The third trend is aging. In developed nations, United States, the old will generally outnumber the young. And in developing nations, the young will generally outnumber the old. And this will create some interesting social tensions. You may notice when you are around in Laguna Beach. Laguna Beach has a fairly old population. It skews older. We only have 3,000 or so students in this district and another probably a couple hundred that go to private school in a community of 30,000. And as in the United States, as the society gets older and the younger people have to help us, take care of us, Social Security, etc., it becomes a burden rests more and more upon the young people. In the area of technology, it's ubiquitous, interactive. Technologies will shape and do shape how we live, how we learn, how we see ourselves, and how we relate to the world. And you can see here in our schools that it is impacting how we learn. And we want to be proactive and really engage our students in learning by taking advantage of the technological tools. Identity and privacy, as we all know, this is a hot topic. Identity and privacy issues will lead to an array of new and often urgent concerns and a demand that they be resolved. Privacy, you have seen people's credit card numbers get stolen, identities get stolen. There's a concern about hacking, political hacking, other countries hacking. And for us, it's imperative that we keep our student information safe. And so we are always monitoring that to make sure that we ensure our students are safe and their privacy is safe. In the economy, an economy for a new era will demand restoration and reinvention of physical, social, technological, educational, and policy infrastructure. My own take on the very interesting times that we are in is we are going through a social shift, and indeed these things are playing out dramatically in our society and across the world. Number 7, jobs and career pressure will grow for society to prepare people for jobs and careers that may not currently exist. That's our reality. That's what we in the education field know that we need to do, prepare our students for jobs that don't currently exist. There are jobs that didn't exist 20 years ago. Chief Technology Officer, when I was in education, in a school district, I was a principal. We didn't have a Chief Technology Officer 20 years ago. There was a tech person. But, we were on Apple IIe's and that sort of thing. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Bioengineering, I can't remember what it is, so I'll move on. Energy, we need to develop new sources of affordable and accessible energy will lead to intensified scientific invention and political tension. Again, we see that oil is driving a lot of political tension in our world and has for a long, long time. And we are desperate for alternatives. They haven't necessarily become economically viable yet. That would be a big crucial issue. Environmental and planetary security, common opportunities and threats will intensify a worldwide demand for planetary security. And again, you can see that playing out today. Sustainability will depend on adaptability and resilience in a fast-changing world. International learning, including relationships, cultural understanding, languages, and diplomatic skills will become basic. And the sub-trend to earn respect in an interdependent world, nations will be expected to demonstrate their reliability and tolerance. Personalization in a world of diverse talents and aspirations, we will increasingly discover and accept that one size does not fit all, and that's a good thing. It enriches us and makes us stronger. Ingenuity, releasing ingenuity and stimulating creativity become primary responsibilities of education and society. And indeed, those are things that we are looking at very closely right now and focusing upon. Depth, breadth, and purposes of education. The breadth, depth, and purposes of education will be constantly clarified to meet the needs of a fast-changing world. So it won't be static. When we started the public education system a couple of 100 years ago, it was really very basic. And it didn't change much for many, many years, up through the 50s, 60s. It was a very static, stable kind of education system. In the 70s, we saw some experimentation. In the 80s, we went back to a very rigid, standards-based, basics kind of education. And that was fine, but it's really not going to help us be successful in the future. It's not enough for our students. We really have to build more skills in them, including the collaboration, creativity, communication, and critical thinking skills that they need in their personal lives, their careers, and in college. Polarization, and narrowness will of necessity bend toward reasoned discussion, evidence, and consideration of varying points of view. This is what Gary Marks says. I hope that's true. I'm not convinced. I think in order for society, the world to survive, that's true. And that's why he says of necessity, but I don't really see that happening in the world. I don't know. I'm hopeful, I'm an optimist, but I think we all really need to work together in the world in order to achieve that. Authority, a spotlight will fall on how people gain authority and use it. Ethics, scientific discoveries, and societal realities will force widespread ethical choices, and we see that in end-of-life choices. I know 2 years ago, my mom, she was in critical, intensive care, and we had to make some decisions about when you take away the support systems, and that has been, medical the medical field has become so advanced that they can do amazing things, but then some harder choices rest on us when it becomes apparent that there's a quality of life issue. So you weigh the length of life and quality of life. And there will also, of course, be bioengineering and that sort of thing, cloning. There will be all kinds of things that will force us to make ethical choices. Continuous improvement, the status quo will yield to continuous improvement and reasoned progress. We can't stay in one place. If you stay in one place, basically you die, right? Either change or die. So we will continue to move forward. And hopefully, I agree, with reasoned progress. And I think it's incumbent on all of us as adults. You know, we get impassioned about things and emotional about things. Let's take a step back. Let's look at the facts. Let's find out the facts. Let's measure the facts. And then let's use that information to make reasoned and reasonable decisions or judgments. Poverty. Understanding will grow that sustained poverty is expensive, debilitating, and unsettling. If you are reading the newspaper headlines, you will see just recently there was an article in the newspaper about the importance of prenatal care for your child. It affects their entire life. It affects their brain development. It affects their behavior. It's not just, we used to say, 0 to 3 is so critical, and it is. It's very critical for learning, and it sets a foundation for how children will do throughout their life. But also the stress the mother experiences in her life when she's carrying her baby, and the nutrition and the health care. All of those things affect our society because they affect our children. And we in the education field, so we build on whatever the child has. We compensate in some cases, but it's really, really critical for our mothers to be healthy and be in, not as stressful environments, to have sound families, to have good medical care, and to have good schools. That's important for all of us, for our society. Scarcity versus abundance. Scarcity will help us rethink our view of abundance. And perhaps, I know some people are really thoughtful about what I want versus what I need. I try to be thoughtful about that. It's like, do I want this or do I need this? Mostly I want things, I don't really need things. So, I think we are consumers in the United States, and we have been, it's been easy for us to be consumers, and we'll have to just think a little more carefully about it as our resources become less abundant. Personal meaning and work-life balance. More of us will seek personal meaning in our lives in response to an intense, high-tech, always-on, fast-moving society. So those are the 21 trends that are predicted right now to affect our future in the 21st century. And those are the trends that we want to prepare our students for as they go forward in life. Next slide. And so what you will hear a lot about this year, next year, and you heard about it last year, are the 4 C's, which are collaboration. Actually, let me start with creativity. How many slides? Creativity, innovation, collaboration, working with others to complete a task or a project, critical thinking. People are going to have to, students ourselves, think very critically and deeply about issues so they can make informed decisions or reason out what they should be doing or making judgments or having opinions. And collaboration, working together to achieve a goal. Did I leave one out? Communication. Communication was the one where all the people were working together. So the 4 C's. Creativity, critical thinking, communication, collaboration. Those are the 4. So we build on those along with our California state standards in order to ensure that we can produce students who are ready for college and careers. That concludes my presentation, and I will now hand it over to Lisa, who will talk a little bit about our personnel changes this year.
So I'm just going to stand right here. But I wanted to, as she mentioned, I'm the Director of Human Resources and Public Communications, so I oversee the hiring processes in the district, and I support our employees who work with your children. So I'll just review some of the new staff members. We had a very busy summer, hiring many new staff over the summer. It's been a busy year. I think we hired over 40 new staff total. Over the last year, when you have around 300 employees, that's quite significant. So over the summer, I'll just go by site. So El Moro, welcomed a new custodian, Jesus Arambila, and he was a substitute for us, so he's done a really, really good job. He's very professional, and we're glad to have him join our team at El Moro. At Top of the World, we hired Jennifer Carlson as a kindergarten teacher. And those of you from El Moro may remember Jennifer Carlson was an instructional aide at El Moro before she moved to kindergarten at Top of the World. So we're really excited. She has teaching experience from around Orange County, LA County in the past, so we're glad to have her on board as well. Thurston had a very busy summer. We hired a lot of staff at Thurston. Alyssa Casario is our new 7th grade math teacher. Jeff Dipple is our new Spanish teacher, and Megan Mathias is our new social studies teacher. I think she teaches 6th and 8th grade. Correct. Okay, thank you. We also welcome Brad Rush as our new school psychologist, and campus supervisor Amy McNeely also joined the team at Thurston this year, and she's additional support. That is a new position that we added to help increase the supervision on the campus during breaks and lunch. At Laguna Beach High School, several other very important staff members. Jenny Hoffman joined the counseling team, so she's our new counselor. Steve Flores was hired to teach chemistry and physics, and as you can imagine, it's challenging to find a teacher who can teach, who's credentialed in both chemistry and physics. We found him. Not only is he credentialed, he's a very good teacher, so we're excited to have him on board. And Carita Garcia is our new Spanish teacher, and I believe she's teaching AP and Honors Spanish, and she is amazing. She comes from Rancho Santa Margarita High School. She had very good proficiency rates on her AP exams there, so we're glad to have her on our team this year. And finally, we welcomed a new dance teacher and director, Esty Carrizosa. And Esty comes from Burbank High School. She built that program pretty much from the ground up there, so she's very familiar with dance. The panel was very excited to hire her. She has a lot of energy, good dynamics, and I think the students will really enjoy working with her. And at the district office, we also hired a number of new staff members. We've added some members to our tech team, Robbie Sparakis as a technology systems specialist, and he's out at our sites. In fact, we hardly ever see him at the district office because he's out at the sites supporting our teachers and our staff in the classrooms, making sure that all of their technology is operational. And Roy Brignac is a database administrator. We may not see as much, but he's working behind the scenes to make sure that our systems talk to each other, which is very critical to make sure everything's working correctly at the sites. And then we hired John Brown as an administrative assistant for human resources and public communications. And one of the primary reasons for the addition of that position are the new regulations related to Affordable Care Act. And so that has a lot of reporting requirements, a lot of tracking and systems that need to be done. So that's part of her role, and we'll all be sharing in that as well. And then finally, we also hired a new coordinator of assessment, accountability, and special projects, and that's Amy Kernan, who's here today. We've also hired a new director of facilities, Jeff Dixon, and Jeff will be joining our team on October 13th. He's already come down from the Central Coast a couple times to meet with us and to tour the schools, so we're very excited to have him on board as well. And I know Dean's going to talk in a few minutes about more of our facilities projects. So probably the one that you want to know the most about is where we are in the process of hiring a new Laguna Beach High School principal. And so I recognize several of the faces in here. I know many of you had come to our parent input sessions and provided us with input, and probably several others of you have participated in our survey. So we're in the process of recruiting and beginning those interview processes very shortly. We're still in the input gathering process. As I mentioned, we held 2 parent meetings to solicit input. We met with the staff, and yesterday I met with ASB and PALS to get the student input as well. And we'll be sending the students a survey shortly via email. The next step in that process is now an interview process. We have 3 rounds of interviews scheduled. The first is a 10-minute screening interview so that we can just assess whether or not the candidate is a good fit for the district and meets the minimum standard or qualifications. The next level of interviews are stakeholder panel interviews where we have parents, staff members, office staff, administrators, multi-stakeholders on the panels. We run 2 simultaneous panels of about 45 minutes, and the candidates rotate through each of those panels. So we tend to have around 8 people on each panel. So it's quite an intensive process. And then finally, there's an administrative interview with the superintendent and cabinet to make the final decision and the final selection that would be recommended to the board. So we hope that we find the right match in this round, but please be assured that if we don't, we will go back out. We will not settle. We will find the right person for this position, and I know it's really challenging to replace Dr. C, and we won't find another Dr. C, but we will look for someone who has the skills and qualities that we want, that are a good match for our high school and for our district. And after we recommend a candidate to the board and the candidate is approved by the board, we'll be scheduling a meet and greet so that all the parents and students can come and meet the new principal before they get started. So that's a little bit about what we've been doing in HR. And so I'll let Cheryl introduce you next.
Thank you, Lisa. Dean is our chief business official, our assistant superintendent of business, and he's going to take a few minutes and just fill you in on what's happening with our facilities and the condition of our district from the business side. And then we're saving the best for last. Our instructional team, our education team will have a presentation with an activity that you will be involved in. So just wanted to preface that so you know that the frosting is coming up here.
Which means I'll be very quick and we'll get on to this. Under the business services, we have our physical realm, our nutrition services, our facilities, well, all of those other duties that come under the non-instructional elements. Some of the things on the fiscal side is to ensure you that we have a strong district, continue to, the audit report coming out, and past audit reports have always been clean audit reports, no audit adjustments. The district takes a firm line and cautious line in making sure that all ongoing expenditures that we have in the district are within the ongoing resources that we have available, and we continually have a strong district. The nutritions, we had a lot of upgrades last year related to meal programs and federal compliance. We have this year, we focus in, the state, the government's focusing in on a la carte items, so those will be more in the secondary schools. So we'll do a lot more improvements, and we have individuals in place for accountability on the improvements that we have. And we've done some rearrangements of those, and so we continue to strive forward in nutrition. Facilities, as you heard, we have our facilities director retired at the end of last year. That means we went through summertime, which is an intense time with projects when kids are out of the classroom, gives us a chance to go in. Our retiring director pre-planned and had a lot of planning for those projects, bids out for roofing and for asphalt. We had a consultant that came in and helped run those projects for us during the summer and did a fabulous job in a lot of asphalt roofing, swelling at the high school, as well as all the other projects that go on, even the Thurston's traffic safety entrance area. A lot of blacktops. Thurston's Blue Top is scheduled for here in October when the kids are away for the 6th grade outdoor science camp. But there's a lot to do. One of the things that we got back was a facilities condition assessment. That kind of gives us a snapshot of where we're at right now, what the facilities look like, and what are the needs. And so, obviously, first and foremost, we're always concerned with safety. So, things like, making sure all the fire, safety items work. Those all been signed off and certified as we transited those to a new company this year. Every unit was functioning and supported and certified. So those kind of things happen. But on the other side of it, we are looking at classroom quality. So air conditioning units, they're not that exciting, but the quality, especially on hot days, you kind of realize, that's an issue. We're in the coastal community, so some buildings are often built without air conditioning, and those are decided over time with the prioritization comes whether you're air conditioned building or not. But the ones that we do have, they do eventually expire and they do need to be replaced. So the better well we maintain them, the longer that they use. So building up our staff in a way that those are maintained as well as a quality focus for us. But our facilities condition assessment came back, and we had about $10 million in current needs, and that grows because of expiring systems over time to 12 and 16 million as you go out 3 or 5 years. And so the district, being prudent financial resources, has set up a mechanism. We will be funding, looking at those projects and prioritizing those with the board in October, November, December, hopefully with a plan in January that will look at 1, 3, and 5 and 10 years out. Actionable plans. Those are not the only needs that we have. We have fields that we are doing. One of them among them, the high school athletic synthetic field will eventually expire probably by summer 2016. We're looking at. Also, we have Thurston's Field and other fields that we're looking at. But there's also program improvement. So as there's different needs, and so as we strategize and plan, we're looking at input on those needs. We'll go through that study session on building those needs for each site and try to work on what needs to be maintained and replaced, and those things that we need to do that are new, and look at that for over, as we look at our next week. So that's a lot will be on the plate, and we'll have a new director in, have a lot of focus in on that, but we continue to do a lot of that work and striving forward. We have some exciting neat things that are happening in the classroom. Mike Morrison talked a little bit more about our 4CLE program, and a lot of the projects we're doing. So I'll leave with that. I'll leave it for the other folks to kind of fill in those.
That Jan Withers has joined us, so in addition to Teresa and Betsy, so we have 3 of our board members today. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Do you need the microphone?
I don't think so.
Your team need the microphone? Okay. Great. I will hand it over to Darlene Messenger.
Good morning. We are trying to do something a little bit different for you this morning to get you a little bit actively engaged, which is exactly what we're trying to do with students in the classrooms. And so we're going to give you a snapshot of the many things that we're working on here in the district in terms of curriculum and instruction. We'll start off with, this is our team for instructional services, composed of me, Irene McCray, Mike Morrison, and Amy Cannon, our newest member. This is her 3rd day, and we're going to have her do a little slide for you this morning, so yay, welcome Amy. Yep, we are certainly off and running at every single one. And we have the wonderful privilege of working with our principals and our teachers to bring these great activities to the classrooms. So we want to give you a little picture of what that might look like. Before Mike shows this video, it demonstrates an approach to teaching and learning that supports many of those 21st century trends that Shereen was mentioning earlier this morning. And it reflects exactly the kinds of learning experiences that we are trying to create for our students here in Laguna Beach. We know these are research-based practices, and they work to really engage in learning experience.
Next, Taiwan Public School in New England is taking a different approach to teaching, immersing students in an unusually comprehensive science curriculum that emphasizes problem solving.
On a crisp fall morning last October, King Middle School in Portland, Maine, invited 8th graders to what it calls a kickoff, the unveiling of an in-depth project that would be at the center of nearly all the students' courses for the next 4 months.
So I direct your attention to this slide. This is called Earth at Night.
Science teacher Peter Hill set the stage.
There are certain parts of the world that use a ton of energy. Along with it, 25% of the world's population doesn't have electricity in it. But enough solar energy hits the Earth every hour to supply the entire world's energy needs for a year. So we need to design tools that can capture all that sunlight that's hitting our Earth, or capture all that wind power that's sitting out in the Gulf of Maine. We need to, wait for it, revolt.
Hill handed the students an ambitious assignment to fulfill by the end of the project.
You're going to create a device that captures natural energy and transforms it into something that's useful for people in some part of the world.
I was like, I can't do that.
Taking all this in was Leva Pierce.
That's way too much. I don't know the first thing about electricity. I don't know the first thing about windmills. I am totally gonna
So
fail.
what do you think about the big picture here?
Projects that take students into uncharted territory are at the heart of teaching and learning at King. Though it's a regular public school, this approach, called expeditionary learning, is unusual, but could be just the kind of education students need in a rapidly changing world, learning the science and social issues that would be at the heart of their invention. path teachers chose to take students there, an 8-week-long interdisciplinary study of wind power. Science teacher Peter Hill.
We started with a wind turbine. How do these things create electricity? And we took apart a motor, and we said, well, there's magnets and wires in there. How do magnets and wires interact to generate electricity?
To make the learning go deeper, in Tech Ed class, students built working model wind turbines.
The criteria for this project is a wind turbine that is stable and sturdy. It has to generate at least 1 volt of electricity. And the other piece is we want it to be creative, outrageous, ingenious, and inspirational.
The politics of wind power was the subject in social studies. Emma Schwartz.
The point is to find a place where it would be good or possible to have a wind turbine. See what the environmental impacts might be if there's a bunch of huge turbines in the area.
You get those discussions around what is the sense of place and what is scenic beauty and how do you alleviate that issue. Let's see where you are.
Next, Mark Jervis's students will argue for their turbine in a persuasive essay addressed to local officials. But for their life-improving invention, students would need to know about faraway places. In English class, they read The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, the autobiography of William Kamkwamba of Malawi, Africa.
He managed to build a big wind turbine, power his house, and he did it all with a book and some trash.
They went through this awful famine, and that was really shocking to me that he can go through that and still have hope.
I think that was a really big theme in the book. If you really just try and you don't really stop, no matter what's in your way, you'll eventually get there.
Inspired by the book, students like Leva Pierce pushed ahead with their own model wind turbines.
I had a lot of struggles with my turbine. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make this generate more than a volt. So I made a whole new set of blades. That worked a lot better. But then I heard about other people that were getting oh, I heard you got 6 volts. And I was like, oh, gotta get more than that.
By February, students had reached the final stage of the project, creating an energy-generating device that improves people's lives. The assignment was to create a technical drawing. Emma Schwartz designed the light.
I call it the Rub-A-Dub Scrub. It's a sponge that generates light, which you might think, oh my god, everyone's going to get electrocuted, but no, I'm going to make sure no one gets electrocuted. As you can see, there's a little dome with lights at the top. There's scrubbers on the bottom. The scrubbers are attached to magnets, which spin around wires. When you rotate it on dishes, the scrubbers rotate. That creates the electrons to flow, and that generates electricity.
Leva Pierce created a crank flashlight.
It will have UVB, UVC, and a regular light. UVC kills bacteria in water.
Her UVB light is supposed to draw insects away from people.
And it will have off, regular, water, bugs, and I'm calling it the Eco Bright.
For the final event of the project, parents were invited in to hear all about the students' inventions.
The Rub-A-Dub Scrub takes the usually wasted rotational kinetic energy. This is live, showing what you're learning to other people, which kind of gives you something more back, I think.
And you have to be clear and concise. Giving presentations is so important because it reforms you with skills that you'll need later in life. Before this expedition, I kind of always thought of myself as I'm good at writing and I'm good at reading, and that's what I'm good at. This expedition has completely changed my idea of science. The science is doing and science is building and science is creating.
What makes this school a success?
But I feel that schools shouldn't just be about learning about problems. I think they should be about solving them. Because if you aren't learning about how to solve problems, then what will you do when you're out of school?
Isn't that great? Credit for bringing that to us and sharing some of those great videos about it. It's sometimes called project-based learning, and we've been training some teachers in developing these kinds of lessons across disciplines, which is really exciting. excited to do as well. So now we wanted to test your mettle and see what you know about the Common Core, and Shereen kind of gave this answer way earlier, but that's okay.
Some people are exams, won't get an A.
There you go. So what Mike's going to do is toggle between your digital resources.
Yeah, so one person I gave an iPod to, an iPod Touch. Raise your hand if you're that person in your table group, okay? So those are the people that you want to say, hey, so everybody that has one, that's the person that's going to collect the answers for your group. So if you see that person, you can say, hey, this is the right answer. And so we have, it's a competition, so each of you has a rocket and you have a color. So when you look at your question, there'll be like magenta or red or yellow or something, and you'll see that color, and that'll move your rocket. So as you answer your question right or wrong, it'll maybe move your rocket or not. And so Darlene asked, we have one question there, so we can go, one person's already engaged, so you can see, already answered the first one right. Yeah, you can say it.
So you don't have to talk. Here's the question. So here's the question if you did not see it. In addition to high school, okay, people in the back now, let's all be. In addition to high standards and mastery of rigorous core subject materials, students will need to acquire skills in 1, collaboration, 2, communication, 3, critical thinking, 4, creativity, or 5, all of the above. I think the odds are stacked in your favor to answer this correctly, but
It should violate. Read those colors,
So what if you answer, but it's in log, and it's moved forward, and you can't go back? You answer all the log, said incorrect answer, and then...
It's hitting screen all day.
Yeah, and then you can't go back. So is this similar format to what the kids have to do in class? Where they answer all the questions and can't go back? I don't want an app in the first place.
okay, well, I see that almost everybody got the answer Okay, so Sherry asked the question. You know, as soon as we get interactive, people start talking, which is a great thing, actually. Because you're talking about what we just did, so we've generated a little bit of excitement or angst or something. Mike's going to do some tutoring for Sherry's group. And Sherry asked the question, if this was in the classroom, we probably wouldn't use this particular app, but Mike just grabbed something that we could use today. There are many that we have access to. Teachers would, of course, test that out and make sure that they would make that work. But we wanted to give you a little bit of that experience. In terms of those 4 C's that we're talking about, the Common Core, you probably know this, but I just want to state this one more time, that the Common Core state standards grew out of the joint efforts of the National Governors Association, the chief state schools officers, and a number of business leaders. They are not national standards. This was a number of groups that said, what do we really believe that every student should know when they leave 12th grade in our system to prepare them for college and career? So out of that came this set of standards that California has since adopted, and we now call our particular standards the California State Standards. And these four things, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity, are part of what the business owners said that they wanted. A number of them were surveyed, and they said, what skills do you need in young students entering the workforce? They didn't say students who can calculate equations. They didn't say students who know the capitals of every state. They didn't say, people who can tell us about the periodic table or cite that. They said these are the skills that we really need in the candidates for jobs. We need young workers who can collaborate, communicate, think critically, and have creativity so they can solve problems. So we can put them in groups, and they can write, and they can speak, and they can do all the things kind of that Leva Pierce and those students were doing in that classroom. So that is a part of the standards. We not only teach
very rigorous standards in terms of content standards, in terms of all of those subject matter content. Teachers are also teaching kids how to do these things. We actually have rubrics that can measure a student's progress in each of those areas. So you'll notice teachers deliberately adding these strategies into the things that the students are doing. And more of that over time. So it's a very big part of what we're doing. So now that we have these new kind of standards, how are we assessing them? What does that look like? And Amy is, where'd you go? She's over here, is going to take us through another question.
Okay, so one of the big things that everybody is talking about are the new ways that we assess students. And they're entirely different from the ways that students were assessed with the CST tests and all of the multiple choice bubble in, one answer is correct, every student answers C type tests. So the new state assessment, which is formerly everyone was calling it the Smarter Balanced or SBAC assessment, that's actually the consortium that created the test. But the new assessment, the California Assessment of Student Progress and Performance, or CASP, your question is, does it just assess student proficiency in language arts and math? True or false? We got some more groups. So, most of you guys did get that correct. The answer is actually false. Even though your students will technically be taking just a math and a language arts test, the way that the Common Core and the new assessments are set up is that language arts test actually encompasses science and social studies as well. So there's things called literacy standards that actually teach your students how to incorporate what they're learning in science and social studies into language arts. And so they'll have to write on the test and answer questions on the test covering a variety of different topics. And so they might have a question. All of the tests, the new assessments, have things called performance tasks. They're pretty in-depth, detailed, comprehensive questions where the students actually are almost doing a project as part of the test. They have to do, maybe research something. As part of the last field test, the students actually went through and they had different performance tasks based on a variety of different historical events. The westward expansion, the gold rush, all of those types of things. And so they actually had to use the knowledge that they had grasped through all of their years of social studies and use that to answer a language arts question on the test and do a writing prompt for their language arts test. So though they actually are only taking technically a math and a language arts test, they still have to incorporate all of those different things that they're getting in their science and social studies class in order to be able to comprehensively answer all of those questions. And there are a lot of new question types. We use true and false here, but throughout the entire test, they actually have to do short answer questions. One of the biggest differences is that all the multiple choice questions, or a great deal of the multiple choice questions, now have multiple answers, which students are not used to. They find one correct answer and then they move on. Now they actually have to figure out all of the different correct answers as part of the test. So we're going to be working with making sure that your students are ready to take those tests and giving them a lot of different ways that they can practice those tests and ways that you guys can help them to practice those tests at home. So I will turn it back over.
We can talk about that.
I can talk about testing.
Thank you, Amy. As you saw from the video, and as we know from all the reading that we're doing in the newspaper, etc., we know that the future is really going to demand that our students have skills in what are called STEM.
the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. Those are the jobs of the future, all of those problem-solving things for environmental issues, etc. And so we have been really gearing up here in Laguna Beach Unified School District to make that happen for our students. Our science, we have some very good hands-on science activities in the elementary grades, after-school clubs that do a number of engineering and science and robotics and other kinds of things. We are also started coding clubs at both of our elementary schools. And in the middle school, we've had STEAM 1 and STEAM 2, which incorporates art as well. And also some very hands-on and interactive science classes that are paying close attention to these kinds of activities. The next generation science standards are coming down the pike because we just don't have enough new standards on our plate right now. So about a year and a half from now, we'll be talking about that and even gearing up and making our science classes that much more relevant to today's world. So each of our wonderful principals are going to talk about, through the rest of the morning, talk about some of the wonderful things that they're doing at their schools in this area. And we'll start with Carolyn Williams, who's going to tell us about some of the great things happening at Laguna Beach High School.
Small but mighty. They tell me that I'm the same height sitting or standing, so. I told Sharina I was playing in that crick long before she was, so our rural roots are coming out. I always told young teachers when I started as a teacher, they handed us a box of dittos and a piece of chalk, box of chalk. So things have really changed, and it's very energizing to be enjoying Laguna Beach High School with the beautiful and brilliant and friendly and enthusiastic students that are learning at Laguna Beach. I'm going to start by telling you about two new science courses. They both have been designated as meeting the A through G requirements, which means that they will be part of the application process for UCs and Cal State schools. So we're very pleased that the hard work of the teachers and staff has paid off in that regard. The first one is called environmental science. And a lot of the phrases and words that have been used this morning, creativity, collaboration, preparing students for college and careers, are embedded in this course. I have a few bullet points because I didn't want to forget any of the key issues. Scientific principles from biology, chemistry, geology, and meteorology will be embedded in this course. They will also be looking at environmental issues, social issues, and policies, and they will have opportunities, as you saw in the video earlier, to design, to experiment, to analyze data, and use technology. The classroom has been refitted. The chairs are on wheels so that the kids can move around and collaborate in different groups. It's really impressive when you see the students at their tasks in the classroom. Case studies will be used as a learning tool, and it's very hands-on. Creativity, critical thinking, these are the attributes of a class like environmental science. The other classes that class that Darlene mentioned is C-STEM. The National Science Foundation funded C-STEM, and UC Davis was key in the development of this course as well, to improve computing, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education, preparing students to be career and college ready. I went and played bridge with some friends the other night, and instead of talking about my favorite topic, my grandson, I said, let me tell you about science at Laguna Beach High School. So this slide that you see here, I included that one because this will be an upcoming experiment and project in the environmental science class, where the students will work in groups and develop gardens that are, as you can see, they will be doing experiments. They will be not our typical way of studying about plants and botany. They will be looking at it from an environmental aspect. So the equipment that is being used is amazing. It's cutting edge, and the teacher is dynamic. It's amazing to see. The C-STEM class also has some amazing equipment. Last Friday I decided I would visit all the science classes. So I started out with Steve Sogo and his advanced research methods. And the students were in groups. Everybody had a little magnetic board with little discs, and each one of the discs represented one of the elements on the periodic chart. And they were involved in wonderful discussions, moving them around. What would happen if we did this? What would happen if we combine these? What happens if we take this one away? I was so impressed with the knowledge and background and insight and analysis that the students were capable of. Then I went into a physics class next door, and the students were measuring laser beams and engaged in conversations that were way over my head. I must say, I had physics a long time ago. The C-STEM class, I do have a couple slides, but I'll tell my story first. The first table, there were 2 students, and there were some bones on the table, and I said, what are you guys doing? Well, we're going to decide how tall this person was and what their ethnic background was from looking at the bones. And they had their computers out, and they were showing me how they were going to proceed. I was really so amazed. The next table, they were doing DNA testing as part of a forensic strand that is embedded in this course. The next table, we're doing sports medicine, and they had a little skeletal foot, and they were watching a video of how to wrap a foot after an injury, describing all of the different ligaments, and then they reached in and got out their little gauze and proceeded to show me how to wrap an injured foot. My foot started to hurt as soon as I saw that. The next table was digital electronics, and I have a slide of that to show you. And the most striking was a life-size, not real Dalmatian, but stuffed Dalmatian, and the students were getting ready to learn how to do an IV, and somehow the little bag of, I hope, fake blood had gotten kind of spilled, and they were sort of mopping that up. But it was just wonderful to see the interest, the engagement, the knowledge, what they were learning, the discussions they were having, just really working on critical thinking, creativity, all of the qualities that we really want to see in the student who's moving into the scary world that awaits them. So let's look at the next slide. This was the digital electronics, and of course I took one look at that and I thought, oh goodness. But they were just very facile in showing me what they were doing and what their project was, and I took one look and moved to the next table. And our next slide this is sports medicine. This would be treating a student with a spinal injury. So the equipment that they have and the analysis that they do is amazing to see. So my bridge group really enjoyed not hearing about my grandson. They were very amazed at what I described for science at our high school, and we are on the cutting edge. It's amazing to see. Yesterday, we were excited to add that for our ROP, working with South Coast ROP, we're adding an app design / coding after school course for our kids, as well as an engineering class. So we're really excited that we just keep finding better and better things to do. And now Mike Morrison is going to fill us in on the technology portion.
Thank you. So we want to be future ready, and one of the things that we've been working on, I've been here for about 6 months, and we've really been working hard on the infrastructure, making sure it's set up right so that we can facilitate these kinds of future-ready skills. And so luckily the cabinet and the board has been very good about allocating the right funds so that we were able to do the wireless project district-wide, so every room has wireless now. Yes, we can clap for that. It's good. We have a couple rooms.
And school power.
Thank you, and school power, definitely. And so we have now we have about 99.9% of the rooms covered. The rooms that aren't are surrounded by other rooms that are, so there's some issues with putting in an access point in those rooms. So basically we're fully covered. The next round of that will be kind of covering some other areas, like where teachers take attendance out in the, like if you're doing a PE teacher and you're taking attendance, we'll cover some of the quad areas and some of the areas outside. So that's the next round, is getting some other areas that weren't in the first round. And then we also worked hard on making sure our network was really stable. We increased the speeds by 10 times at a lower cost, and we were able to really maximize the speed. So we did a lot of infrastructure things. And then now we're going to start to actually implement some of the fun things and more exciting things which impact your students. One of those programs is our BYOD program, which is Bring Your Own Device. And we have 3 pilots working, well actually 4 pilots. Every school is doing a pilot. 5th grades at elementary, at intermediate it is yet to be determined. They're still working through it. They're doing a survey soon. So they'll already did, okay. So that survey went out, so the parents are getting back information to them and they're determining the next steps. At the high school, it is 10 teachers that chose to be a part of this program in the pilot. And they're going to be, these teachers have met in the summer for 4 days. A lot of what you saw Leva Pierce experiencing, they were trained in those techniques, PBL, for 3 days, and 1 day of really the technical aspects of BYOD. So they're excited, they're ready to go. The pilots don't get started, they're going to get started kind of slowly this year, like some of them don't even start till January. There's parent nights in October. So if you're a 5th grade parent, you're going to be getting more information on that later. The other thing that we realized is that it's not really one-to-one. How many of you have a smartphone? Raise your hand. How many of you have a tablet? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you have a laptop? How many of you have a desktop at home? Like a desktop? All right, so you guys all have different machines. How many of you have a smartwatch? No. That's coming next year, right? Next year we'll ask that question and you probably all have watches that do things. But at this point you can see that you are a one-to-many person, right? You're one person, you have many devices. And we think it's the same way with our kids. We know that certain devices are really important for certain types of applications. So for example, in science, in the STEM class, they have a certain computer that has modules attached to it that are loaded on it that the students will use. Even though they're bringing in their own device, there might be devices that we give them to use in the classrooms to do certain projects. So it's really a one-to-many situation. Some classrooms allow students to take out their cell phones and use them at certain times. So that's a one-to-many situation. So just want you to be aware it's not one-to-one. The other project that we're working on that has a lot of power, and Jenny's going to be talking about in a minute, is our 4CLE project, which stands for the 4 C's, which you know what they are now, learning environment. And what we realized is that there are really 3 teachers in the classroom. There's the teacher, which you guys know. There's your colleague, your peers, which also you learn from. And then there's the environment in your classroom. So that's the 3rd teacher. And we're really trying to figure out what that 3rd teacher means to that, to really improve instruction. So we're redesigning some of our classrooms, rethinking them so that they're more engaging. And right now we're in the process. We have 8 pilot classrooms, and we're testing things in those classrooms. Those teachers have met in the summer and done research, and now they're going back to their rooms, testing out some of the research. Some of it's very low cost. It's like just taking away clutter and things like that. And it's very simple. And other things do cost money, like furniture and monitors and things like that. So we're in the research testing, and then the final phase will be recommendations. And then we'll start to roll those. Once we get solid answers on those recommendations from those rooms, we'll start to roll those out district-wide, hopefully. And
I'm pretty sure I could just use my middle school lunch voice for you guys.
Perhaps I don't need this. But we're so excited at Thurston. It's been such a great year. I'm sitting here listening to what Carolyn's saying about the STEM classes at the high school, and we are so excited to kick off our 2nd year of STEAM at Thurston. And last year, one of the units that they worked on with the social studies classes, the STEAM kids worked collaboratively on a mock trial. And the STEAM kids gathered information, analyzed the data. The social studies students were learning about the justice system. Together, they put on a mock trial that lasted a couple days. It was phenomenal, where the kids were in social studies were able to be the jury, the judge, the prosecutor, the defendant. The kids in STEAM were able to be the expert witnesses. And it was a great example of what a Common Core lesson can look like at Thurston Middle School. And one of my favorite parts about the teachers at Thurston Middle School is we don't just keep it with that. This year we layer on our 8th grade language arts.
And we're going to have that really be a united collaborative effort where they're doing the newspaper, they're doing the articles coming out of that mock trial. So we're really looking forward to STEAM. This is our second year. We have one class of STEAM 2 with 26 students and 2 classes of STEAM 1 with over 60 students in it. So it's just been a great addition to our school. One of the things, there's so many things I could talk about. I feel like I could talk about tomorrow night at Back to School. We have this incredible video that we're going to show you parents, that we had all 800 students participate in last Thursday, and it's such great energy, and I would encourage you, if you can't make it tomorrow night, that you watch it on our video or on our website, hopefully by next week. But we also have technology, and we have really pushed the envelope at Thurston because of our students, because of our incredible staff, because of the United Vision with School Power, PTA, private donors, and the district. We are able to have 5 fully functioning 4CLE classrooms. And personally, at Thurston, we do tell the kids that it is the teacher in charge, that is the most important. We talk about there being more than one teacher, but we like the kids to know that the teacher's still in charge in the classroom. But what we have done, I just wanted to share a minute about our journey. So last September, we had thought that we might want to do a one-to-one device or one-to-one iPad with all students at Thurston. And then we saw the LA roll out the iPad, and you guys might remember how that went. And I was like, whew, thank goodness we didn't do that in September. And then as we watched their journey, we kind of took a step back and thought, how could we make this work on our campus? And what we ended up doing in October, November, December is we layered on carts in our classrooms. So in one classroom, in a science class, we had a Chrome cart. In another classroom, we added on an iPad cart. In another classroom, we had laptops. And we saw great, amazing instructional lessons happening that involved all 4 C's. And it was just so phenomenal and so amazing that we really were thinking, this is just a great opportunity for us at Thurston. But if you know me, it's always nice, but I want to do something more. So what I wanted to do is, as you have this learning going on your digital devices, you really need a way to display it so all the kids can see what's going on. So we decided that we don't need just 1 monitor in a classroom. We really need 3 monitors. And suddenly a 60-inch monitor looks really small in a room when you need 80-inch monitors. So we said we needed monitors in our classroom. So we started implementing in specific classrooms 3 monitors. That way, when students are working on their digital devices, they're able to project their information on the screen, and another group can say, that is really good, I can do better. And that competitive drive from the students really kicks in. So then we said the monitors are really nice, but I think we could do more. This works really well for me at school, not so well for me at home sometimes when I'm always like, it's nice, this new couch is nice, but if we painted. Okay, so we said we needed furniture because it doesn't do any good to still have everybody sitting at traditional desks and facing forward, right? We have these great monitors, we have these digital devices, we need new furniture so they can sit in collaborative groups. That way they're really communicating with each other and they're able to have those conversations. So we implemented furniture just this week. If you have students at Thurston, you might know we've had a lot of transition. We have new furniture in 5 of our classrooms with these great collaborative desks. I'm so excited for you to see them tomorrow night at Back to School night. So the furniture was great. We had the monitors, we had the devices, and I'm like, this is really nice. But I think we could do better because basically we've eliminated a traditional front of the classroom. Students are in these groups, and now there is no teacher and everybody looking forward. You're moving around, and sometimes as the instructor, I'm behind the student's back, or I've walked around, and you still want, kids aren't just looking at you to see what you're saying, so you want the kids to be able to hear you. So we added this audio amplification that goes around the teacher's neck during the day. And basically, it just provides, it saves the teacher from spending a lot of their energy projecting their voice, but it also allows the conversation to just happen in the classroom naturally. They also come with these pods. So as kids are working in groups of 4 or 6, the teacher can listen in on that group and answer a question from another side of the room. Or a student, I just had someone tell me yesterday, a student who normally isn't always able to project their voice and provide an answer in class, they push the little button on their side pod and answer the question in class, in math class. And just the energy and the vibe and the success that that student felt was amazing. So it's a whole new way of looking at a classroom. One of the things that I was so grateful for is last year when Mike came on board, we met at the end of the year, and we definitely said that these 3 components really make a great, successful 4CLE classroom.
furniture, monitors, and audio, which kind of leads us back to where we're heading this year as a district and each of the sites. The carts are nice, they're not going away, but the funding, the way we can be looking at our vision is creating these lasting classrooms and maybe getting to where students are bringing their own device. So we're so excited at Thurston. It's been a great journey for us, and I think that's it, right?
And another really important and essential component of our educational system has to do with the social and emotional well-being of our kids. And we've had this process, the MTSS process, in place for some time, but we are not losing sight of it, and Irene is continuing to lead our efforts in this area.
Can I use my big girl voice too? Does that work? Okay, I'm going to do this a little faster because I know that time is getting closer to the end and I want to get you energized. So here's our goal. You already did it! Okay. Did you do it? No. The acronym MTSS stands for Math, Technology, Science, and Social Studies. So instead of grabbing your device, if the answer is true, stand. If the answer is false, sit. MTSS stands for Math, Technology, Science, and Social Studies. If the answer is true, stand. If the answer is false, stay seated. Okay, I'm gonna have you all sit. We've been spending a lot of time, as Darlene has mentioned, on MTSS. Well, what is it? It stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. So those of you who stayed sitting, kudos. Very good. All of our sites look a little bit different in terms of the levels of support that they have in place. And that makes sense because the needs of our kids at the different levels look very different, or a little bit different. You've heard the terms in the past, RTI, response to intervention. You've heard the term PBIS, positive behavior intervention supports. You've heard the term RTI squared. Well, MTSS is a way to capture it all. It's a way to look at the academic side, and it's also a way to look at the social emotional side of our students. Because as you know, if our kids are experiencing behaviors or have social emotional needs that are not being met or addressed, then how on earth is learning going to take place at the levels that we're describing that needs to? This particular chart that I have behind me, you probably can't read all the fine print, but the point of the slide is that each of our sites has one of these pyramids that shows the academic and the behavior side. And the interventions, again, based on the particular campus, will change based on the needs of our kids. A little later on, or in just a few minutes, our principals are going to share a variety of things that they're doing at each of the levels. Sometimes, or I think you've heard the term green zone or tier 1. That would be the bottom level. That would be universal interventions for all students, both academically and behaviorally. The yellow zone is our middle zone. Those are for kids that need a little bit more. Not all of us get it the first time it's taught. That's okay. But what do we do for those kids that need to have additional explicit instruction to learn the material or learn the behaviors? And then the tier 3 are for kids who need a little bit more. We need to have research-based, evidence-based practices in place in all the different levels. And that's what we're moving forward with. This MTSS, it's not a specific program. It's not a service. It's a decision-making framework that we use in our schools, basically to select materials, to integrate materials, and implement them to improve student outcomes. So I have another question for you. Social skills difficulties are most common in elementary school, middle school, or high school. Go ahead and use your device. that have needs in this particular area at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. So what we've done, because we're noticing it on our campus, is we have put in interventions in place. So we're using our data, we're using our information from our students, and we're bringing in supports to address the social, emotional behavior needs of the students. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Our principals are going to share some things that they're doing on their particular campuses to support kids behaviorally, social, emotionally, as well as academically. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Duddy and Mr. Conley.
Good morning, everyone. It's kind of neat to see parents that began at El Moro when I began 10, 11 years ago, and now I see their parents at the middle school and the high school, and just the progression that the students get to experience here in Laguna Beach. But I'm really passionate about that the elementary school builds that foundation and those skills for the students so that they can do these fabulous things at the middle school and the high school. And that's what I believe. So one of the things that we do at one of the interventions, I guess you could say, at the elementary level is called the Collaborative Academic Support Team. Because we didn't have enough acronyms, we call it the CAST. And so it's an opportunity for the principals and all the support staff that we have. We're very fortunate. We have speech pathologists, we have psychologists, we have counselors at the elementary school level, and we have a lot of expertise with our teachers. And so we meet with each grade level, and we explain to them the students that they're getting and the interventions they've participated in, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and give them suggestions of how the students can be successful for those teachers in the upcoming year. So that's coming up. I think Top of the World already had their first CAST meeting.
We had ours yesterday. It's actually my first CAST meeting. It is so powerful from a teacher perspective. But you get those students, you might have heard the bits and pieces from the previous teacher, but to sit down and say, okay, here's student A, here's all of what's worked with that child last year, here's his background story. So you hit the ground running. A lot of times you learn that as the year goes on, and halfway through the year you're like, okay, now I truly understand where that child's at. But to know the entire story of that child within the first 3 weeks of school is so valuable. It allows you to guide your instruction and truly kind of cater what you're doing to meet the individual needs of that student. And I see it too as, it's that catch-all net. Like, no one's falling behind, no one's falling through the cracks, and we're truly able to support all students and meet all of their needs. So it's incredible, and it's something I have not experienced in previous districts. So it's unique to with the resources we have, but it is just so special that we can meet all the students' needs like that.
And then the next piece is there are new students that come to us that we don't have that history on. So we also listen to the teachers, and they bring up those new students and what their needs might be, and we do observations and we do some research, whether it's in the CUME folder, calling the prior school, talking to the parents, whatever it might be, and then we also have plans in place for those new children as well.
All right. So, like you've heard, PBIS, the Positive Behavior Intervention Supports. And like I said, it really is a framework for us. It allows us to kind of model and explain to students what the expected outcomes are. At Top of the World, you can see our banner. It's all about the ABCs, so acting responsibly, being prepared to learn, and caring for yourself and others. And we kick off the year at both sites with these PBIS assemblies of rotations. And we go along the campus and say, okay, what does it look like to act responsibly at the jungle area or in the NPR? And we go through and explain, we model the expected outcome. So we can start the year and say, okay, you all know what the expectation is. Now we can work together to ensure that we're all doing the best we can and being the best possible student we can be. I know El Moro has STARS, is your acronym. So again, it allows to the second piece. It allows us to build that great school climate and school culture. And the kids know the expectations. They're comfortable. They're confident. It's consistent across all areas of the campus. So it truly just makes it kind of easy for the kids to know that they're not uncertain about what needs to happen. It's all there. It also allows us to really use the data each year to kind of reflect back and say, okay, what areas are still a concern? In that following year, we just met with the district PBIS team and kind of set some action goals for this year. Okay, let's really look at third grade. What was an issue? Let's see what we can do differently to really meet those needs and to figure out how we can
target that area specifically. So it is really special in that regard. And like I said, we have the assemblies, and then moving in next, we have character counts at El Moro. We have Rachel's challenge here. And that's our focus is on the kindness and compassion, and how to just how to kind of keep that, just build that kind of idea of, listen, we're all here together. We're a family, and how can we best treat each other, and what's the best way to be the best possible system we can be. And you can want to speak to character counts.
Character counts. Thank you. Trish was our chairperson last year, and that's our parallel program. It's a character education program, and it emphasizes respect, fairness, caring, citizenship, trustworthiness, and responsibility. And so each month we focus on one of those character traits at El Moro, and we reward the students for showing those character traits, either in the classroom or out on the campus. And the students have really bought into our program. Our parents are very supportive of our program, the PTA, and it's really helped support our positive behavior intervention support and create that climate that Mike's referring to. One of the things that I'm also really passionate about is the way students treat each other. And 3 years ago at El Moro, Dr. Parsons and I spent the majority of our time intervening on the behalf of students and parents who felt like their children were being bullied. And this was a result of a young man who, unfortunately, in San Clemente, who had committed suicide, and it was as a result of bullying that took place at school. And so it was on the news, it was in the newspaper, and of course all of us were terrified that if we allowed bullying in our schools, that this may be the result that took place here. And so what we found was that everything was being labeled as bullying. Whether I was in the game, whether or not I was first in line, was it my turn or not, and everything, and then all of a sudden everything was bullying. And really what those things are conflicts. And so what we did through our PBIS assemblies is define what is bullying and what is not, and how do we handle those things. So we're teaching solving problems at both schools, how to solve problems and resolve conflicts. And then we also have a strategy in place of what to do if you are being bullied, or if somebody is showing disrespect towards students. And we call that our stop, walk, and talk conflict resolution strategy. The first thing we do is ask the student to stop. I don't like the way you're talking to me. I don't like the way you're treating me. Please stop doing that. If that doesn't work and the student continues, we ask the students to walk away, okay, and go and talk to an adult to get help. The other part of that we know, and think back to when you were in high school and when you were in middle school, okay? Being an upstander, not a bystander. If the bully was at the bus stop, I know in my school history, if the bully was at the bus stop and everybody was laughing and giving him or her an audience, that just fueled the bully even more. So, because kids were standing by and we were laughing or thinking it was funny, and it's not. So at the elementary school level, and these kids are great because they have that sense of justice within them. And so if somebody is an upstander in that situation, and we teach the kids to be upstanders, not bystanders, if they stand up and say, hey, that's not cool, don't do that, that's not right. A lot of the times the kids will identify even themselves, yeah, I don't know why I'm doing that, and they can really put a stop to it right away. And the power of the group too, to not laugh or encourage that type of behavior, but discourage it is really important as well. All these behaviors will definitely make a difference in making our schools a better place to be, to allow all these great things that Carolyn observed. When the kids learn this in elementary school, then they don't have to worry about it when they get to be older. They know they've gone to school with these kids together and they know the right way to treat each other, and it allows all these great things that Carolyn observed in the high school.
So these are just examples of a few of the things that we're doing. And again, like Jenny, we can spend much more time sharing all the details of all the different interventions and programs that we have in place. But at least it gives you a feel for our decision-making structure and gives you a couple of examples of what we can do.
So we hope we were able to give you a little snapshot of the things that are really passionate about and really ensuring that are taking place in all of our schools. And we invite you, when you visit your kids' classrooms, to ask questions about these things and try to locate, are these things happening? What does it look like in my child's classroom? And we're just really happy that you're on this journey with us as we continue to make our schools even better. They're already great, we want to make them greater. So thank you for listening to our presentation this morning.
We'll wrap it up first. I just want to thank everyone so much for coming today. And, next month in October, we have Leslie Dixon from the Birds and the Bees Connection, who's going to be talking about puberty for boys and girls. So it's a really good lecture. We hope you can make it. And there's going to be a $5 fee for that to cover some of the cost of our speaker. We will have coffee and pastries, and it will be here at Top of the World. If you know someone who could not make it today, we are going to have a video of the presentation up on the Coffee Break website in probably about a week. Go to coffeebreak.com is the website. And if you have any suggestions for speakers, we have a couple spots left for this year. Please feel free to see me afterwards or send me an email on the Coffee Break website. Thank you so much for coming.